Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of, special bonus thing of Bardic Quest. We are going completely off form today as an extra bonus thing to celebrate our anniversary of the show. And one of our most vocal fans, I think, has kindly volunteered to quiz us on all things Bardic Quest. And that we're probably going to go for 45 minutes, an hour or so, however long, I guess. We fancy doing it. And Becky Hill is going to quiz us, throw questions at us. It's me, James, and Annina today. And Becky's going to throw questions at us, and we're just going to chat. Chat all things Bardic Quest. So, Becky, over to you.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Welcome, everyone. I feel rather lucky that I've got the two elusive members that have not been in recent episodes. So
that's true.
The other two have escaped, and I've got you guys. That's fine. It means I can grill you. As Wayne mentioned, we're doing lots of questions, and thankfully other fans besides myself, and I've got a plethora on standby, have submitted questions in. So one question that kept coming up a lot between both myself and other fans, this one's coming from Robert Treadwell. He asks, how long have you all been playing D&D, and what made you to decide to do this group production? It's kind of an inclusive answer.
I suppose I should probably go first, because I suppose the second half of that question kind of does... I was the catalyst, I guess. So
yes, you were the catalyst.
I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since, I think it's pretty much 20 years now. I think I was about 13 when I first played Dungeons and Dragons. I wanted to play it a lot earlier than that, because I had seen, this is really going to date me now, I had seen an episode of Dexter's Lab when I was a kid.
Yes.
Which included them playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, that looks like my kind of game. How the hell do I play it? And I spent years looking for any way to play, and then eventually I found some friends that actually did play. So I came in at 3.5 edition, which I have very fond memories of. And then kind of during my uni days, it took a backseat. That was during 4th edition. And then when 5th edition came out, it was like, oh, I'm back. I'm playing D&D again. Probably about 20 years, most of which I've been DMing. I think the first year of playing, I was like, I'll play. And then I was like, but that DMing thing looks really fun. And then Bardic Quest itself has actually been very much in my mind for many years. It was just the logistics around recording an actual play show that was good quality, that you know, multiple cameras, multiple microphones. It was just like, how the hell am I going to... And I was trying to rack my brain about it. And then the pandemic happened and Zoom became ubiquitous. And then I was like, this has actually got every single tool that I need to produce an actual play show to a quality that I'd be happy with, because it does as I was just saying before we hit record, it's got the speaker view, so we can, do all the editing kind of live for us. You've got green screen, so you can do backgrounds and virtual backgrounds and things like that, plus recording it, and it just had all of the tools there to be able to do it in a way that was, as I was saying again before we hit record, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but it was enough that I was like, yes, this is doable. So I'd actually spoken to Isaac years before, maybe 2 years before, saying, I'm thinking of doing a D&D show. I know you kind of play D&D. Would you be in? And he was like, well, I live down south, you live in London, and then, we probably wouldn't be able to play that regularly because I wouldn't be able to come up every week. But yes, otherwise I'm in. And again, that solved the geographical issues as well, right? So it was kind of one of those things that I'd wanted to do for a long time. yeah, the opportunity presented itself mostly because of COVID. So yeah. Anyway, that was a long-winded answer.
No, that's fine. That's really good to hear. Really good to hear. How about you two then? Let's go to James.
Well, okay. So I've been playing for about 6 years now, just to make you feel extra old, Wayne. I was a big fan of the Yogscast on YouTube, and they did a D&D show called Yog's Quest. And I remember watching it when I was quite young, and it's that same thing of like, what is this? I need to get involved in this. How do I find out about this? And after watching it, I remember I wrote out my own D&D thing, and then I ended up discovering, oh no, there's an actual starter set. Let's just go there. Got a few friends who I wanted to DM, so I fell into DMing, and then it's just been a journey from that point. And then obviously played quite a lot at university. Got all my friends, got little groups going. That classic thing of you have loads of campaigns going for like 2 sessions, and then no one can meet up to do any more. And then one day, so I actually met Wayne at a workshop at my university, the university we both went to, and we'd met for that one workshop, and then a couple of months later, got a message on Twitter of Wayne being like, "You're interested in this little going. So you're interested in D&D?" And I was like, you had me at "Are you?" And I was like, yes. So yeah, that's how I got into D&D, and then how I got into Bardic Quest.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And how about you, Annina?
I also started really young. The first time I played, I was about 15. It would have been 3.5 as well, I think, at that time. Not that I remember, because the DM we had then was very much into homebrew. So I think we played a little bit of 3.5, and then he went, "I'm bored, I'm going to make my own content." So he just threw the books away and did his own system. So that's what I mainly played. And then I did also play other ones like Vampire the Masquerade. I love that one. And I really, really want to play it again now that it's back. I'm a 90s goth. What can I say? I'm a 90s goth. Everyone who knows me knows that. So I played as a teenager pretty much solidly till I was about 18. And then I went to drama school, moved, all that. And then I had a good 10-year gap where no one only played it, and I was acting and doing other things, so it just took the sidelines. Also, I was an extra nerd as a teenager. I LARPed. I did and if you're a nerd, LARPing made you you were a nerd. If you LARPed, you were
epic level nerd.
The loser is nerd known to man, and I did that a lot. The costumes, everything. Before it was even called cosplay, we didn't know it was called cosplay. So we did LARPing. So yeah, I had a big old chunk of time where no one I knew played D&D, and then after Critical Role came round, thankfully my friends wanted to play it, and I was like, yes, let's get back into this. Our home campaign has been running for about 5 years.
Wow.
And we have 3 campaigns with the same group, but we play once a month-ish. And then obviously once I saw Critical Role, I'm like, that's what I want to do, because it's the perfect mix of, you create a really detailed character with all this backstory with, I don't know what's going to happen. So I just love the mix of improv and honestly not knowing what happens with, I know my character inside and out, and getting to play that character. So that's why I love any sort of long form TTRPG. And then during the pandemic, I joined a Twitch guild that stream. So we played, it's called Black Feather Guilds. So I started doing shows then. And we played Monster of the Week and a couple of other systems with them. So that's what I did throughout the pandemic, and absolutely loved it. We did it live. I was on their Friday shows because all of them are American, and that was their daytime Friday slot is the evening in the UK. So I was like, I'm not going to play at 3 a.m.
No.
I love you, but no. I'm not going to join in at 3 a.m. So I used to do the Friday daytime slot. And then I think me and Wayne connected on Twitter. I think I responded to some sort of Critical Role fandom thing going, and then a couple of tweets, and then I just got this DM like, hi. Would you be interested? And I was like, yes, I would be, totally. And everyone else is an actor as well. And I went, cool, let's do this.
Nice.
Yeah, and here we are.
I think the moral of the story is, if you're an actor on Twitter and you're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, I'm a watching.
Wayne will find you.
I know you are.
You've been
warned. Wayne will find you.
Scary.
Oh. Okay, well that brings us on to our next question, which is from Lee, aka Cobwebbed Dragon. He asks, do you folks play or have you played any other tabletop RPGs other than D&D?
Well, I've played a lot at the moment. I've played a lot, like Monster of the Week, the Avatar one, Dragon Age, Vampire the Masquerade. My friend is working on making his own system. Played that, which it's not published or available anywhere. So I'm doing the sort of beta run of it. So yes, a lot. I do love other systems as well. They've all got their pros and cons, and obviously D&D is the most mainstream one. But I think everyone should try other systems.
Definitely. I've not played that many. I obviously D&D 5th edition. I've never done 4th 3.5 edition. Never done any of that in D&D. I played The Witcher, The Witcher 1, and then again, my friend also has their own like steampunk, old Victorian world that they're homebrewing called Stormforge, which we play most nights. So yeah, but otherwise it's that's all I've got on that front.
Yeah, I'm ashamed to say I'm a D&D only.
You're a purist.
Yeah,
I'm the same. I'm the same. Yeah, I only know of D&D.
And I understand the angst in the wider community about people playing beyond D&D, and it's not really because I don't have an interest in the other games. It's mainly I don't have time. Although I do have a home campaign, and one of our players is very into different systems, and we have talked about a lot of systems, but I am the DM for that campaign. So because I'm a forever DM, right? So I think when that campaign ends, I think I am probably going to be like, pick one of the systems. I think it's Blades in the Dark, Paranoia, or 13th Age. I think are the top contenders for the ones that he talks about the most. Paranoia sounds very interesting.
Paranoia is really cool. I've not played it, but I've watched it.
And Friend Computer, right?
Yes.
Oh, it sounds so cool.
Yeah, that sounds very tense. I like the horror ones a lot. So if you want a horror vibe, Paranoia is good.
Yeah, I kind of like the dystopian thing that it sounds like it's got going on as well. But yeah, so I haven't actually tried any games, any other systems yet. I've tried 3.5, I've tried 4th edition, I've tried 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. That's about as varied as it gets at the moment. But eventually, yeah, I think I'll definitely be trying one of those 3 for sure.
I'm pretty much D&D through and through. I was like many of you, I discovered it at University of Huddersfield, where I went, joined their gaming society, played a game there. Can't remember the name of the game or what campaign it was, but I remember my character was called Elbruna, and she's just stuck in my mind ever since. And then at my writing group in Later Life, discovered they played D&D, played with them, from in real life to online during the pandemic. And then I've recently joined a nerdy little gaming shop just around the corner from my house, and we play there every Sunday, all being well, when all members can turn up, as is always the catch. So, which actually leads me on to a question from Gary Lloyd, which you may have already answered preemptively, which is, have you ever played together in real life? So actually on a table with dice, or has it just been pretty much on Zoom?
Between all of us?
Yes, between the Bardic Quest group.
No, never in person.
I have never seen any of their legs.
Do we have legs? That's the question.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
And that, Annina, was your first mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never met Annina, Ollie, nor Isaac in person. I've only seen Wayne once in person.
I can confirm to you, Annina, James does have legs.
Yes. Yes. They're like, the chicken legs. They're like, it's quite a spectacle to be seen.
Well, if time and geography and commitments allowed, would you all host a game together in real person?
Yeah, I'd definitely join.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Whether or not it would just be something that happened between the lot of us and never kind of publicly made available would be another matter entirely, because logistics and things, right?
Acceptable.
But I mean, definitely, if we could in person at some point, it'll happen, I think.
It will happen.
Yeah,
it will happen.
Definitely.
Hopefully something to aspire to for your 2nd year anniversary then,
maybe. Production budgets need to be much higher,
into a question. Yeah.
Buy the t-shirts.
Buy all the t-shirts. Subscribe. Watch the episodes
Becky,
on repeat.
buy the t-shirts.
Well, this will feed into a question from me then. So, if you were able to play a game in real life, obviously most players know snacks and D&D go hand in hand together. So, which of you would bring sweet or savoury snacks, or would you be the type of group that just have a big takeaway feast at the end and then just rant and rave about the adventure so far?
Oh, great.
My answer is all of the above. That's what happens in our D&D games.
I feel like
all of the
Isaac
above.
would bake something.
Oh, now what would you bake?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I think Isaac would bake something. Isaac would come in with cupcakes.
Or his famous dwarvish honey loaf.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Which I need to try.
Yes.
Still.
If we're doing it in character, I'd just have to bring a rotten fish and just.
Well, if it's in character, it would be like an animal carcass.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, there you go, you cook it.
I'm definitely a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
I am the sort of person that any game I come to, I'm like, I am expecting everybody's going to bring something. So I just come in, and usually the first thing I say to everyone is, I bring tribute, and then bang it. But yeah, I don't think I've ever actually had a game where we've had takeaway afterwards.
Really? Our home game sessions last about 8 hours, because they're only once a month, so it's a Sunday all day. So you bring your snacks, but they run out by
That's true.
hour 4, and then at the end you're like, oh, let's get pizza and watch something.
It was usually Pizza Hut with my group when we did do it in real life, because we've got a few people with allergies or vegan, so we could all order it in our taste, and then we just rant and rave and share anecdotes of the past game or other people's past campaigns, and then grill our DM about, what we're going to do next week, what are you going to do with us, and that kind of thing. But it's just part of the camaraderie and the fun of the after experience of the campaign, which is brilliant.
The debrief after the session.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so here's another question from a fan called Nigel Raggett. Apologies if I get the pronunciation wrong, Nigel. He would like to know, and this can include you as Wayne as well as DM, what is your favourite D&D character class other than the one you are playing?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, I know my answer.
First question that stumped you, all. That's good.
I usually always play an elf of some kind, And I like bards. Bards are my favorite. Or after a bard, I would go for one of the magic casters. So with Saga, I am playing. I always said I'd never play a human because it's boring. And I went for the class most unlike the class I was least likely to pick. And now I love her. I love her to absolute bits. She's probably my favorite character.
Yeah.
So I definitely, when I was playing, I was like, okay, I always go for elf or one of the sort of newer, weirder classes. And I always want to do magic. So let's challenge myself and play and choose the ones I wouldn't choose.
Well,
that's what I did with Saga.
Because I didn't get any kind of like newbie to the role vibes at all from Saga. Because I was actually re-listening to episode 1 whilst I was prepping for this thing, and I thought, oh yeah, Saga was so cool even back then. Like when Sergei says, "Oh yes, are you looking for a dwarf?" and Saga says, "Yes, I'm looking for the dwarf." Who's asking? Me. I'm stood right in front of you. Yeah, you did so well. So okay, how about you, James? Have you picked one?
I think my favourite class is Druid. As a countryside boy and a lover of the woodlands and the outside, I just natural affinity towards them. I do like Rangers as well. I know they're very like underspoken for in D&D 5e. But yeah, definitely those two. Or Warlock, or Sorcerer, any of them. I love them all.
How about you, Wayne? If you could play a character, what would be your class?
So my go-to usually, if I am playing, is, which is very rare, is usually a human, because I think humans are underappreciated in D&D. Not attacking you personally there, Annina.
Well, I thought the same until I picked human. So
I do think humans are really underappreciated in D&D. And I would normally go for a sorcerer. And the last version, because it's usually a version of the same character because I play so rarely. The last version was specifically a shadow sorcerer, which was very cool to play. But yeah, I mean, I think next time, to be fair, I think next time I play, I'll probably go all the way into the dark territory and just play a warlock. I think probably next time. But my go-to is human sorcerer, for sure.
My first character was a Dragonborn Paladin of Odin, because I like the idea of being a dragon that loved books, and Odin likes knowledge, therefore books and knowledge, that kind of thing. That campaign sadly kind of sputtered out because we kept having different players leave and then join, and then hardly anyone from the original group was there.
Right.
Second one was a druid, not a druid, a warlock.
Yeah.
Her patron was her imaginary friend, who turned out to be a high demon lord from the 7 pits of hell.
That's
when the group found that out, nobody liked her. They all wanted her to leave, so she left.
That sounds like my sort of character.
Yeah, it was intense, because our DM at the time, he would do what he would call Discord roleplay. So we would kind of like have in-character conversations with NPCs, or under the DM's watch with NPCs whilst we're at work, going to bed, on the bus. So DM really stopped. Yeah. But it was quite fun, because now I've got a little record of all the conversations she's had with her imaginary friend, and when he was telling her to, break that crystal, have some fun, and actually that crystal is holding up the wards, protecting your ward. And she's like, no, cool. Do I really have to? It's going to be a bad thing. Anyway, that's another long story. My current character is a druid. She's what race is she? She's a tabaxi druid, just being a cat. She's black with white spots like stars in the night, so she's called Sky at Night, because tabaxi are all very literal with their names. So yeah, but I'm having some fun with the druid. It's fun so far.
They are good, aren't they? I do like them.
I do love the concept of a druid that is already basically an animal.
Yeah.
That's a very good
Wild
point.
Shape
craft into a human.
Yeah.
The incoming joke in our group is that my tabaxi druid is always the last one up, because she doesn't really care about the dawn sunrise. She just likes to sleep like any cat does. And I like my sleep as well. So that... Okay, so moving on, we have a question from fan Simon Murphy. He says, loving the show so far. Whenever you finally finish, which won't be for a long time yet, The Lost Mines, will you continue on with these characters or start again with something like Stormwreck Isle, if it's any good, in brackets, question mark?
Me and Wayne were talking about this the other day. Literally. I mean, I am so attached to Saga, so my immediate impulse is to keep playing it. But that will depend on so many things. But currently, I'd still be like, no, I love her. No. But yeah, that depends on many, many things.
Yeah, what to say and what not to say. So Lost Mines, if anybody knows the adventure, they know.
I don't. It's all new to me, which is why I love it. Okay,
good. I think it's better that way. But to be fair, as we were saying before we hit record as well, it can be played so many different ways that it doesn't really matter too much if you do. But as anybody that does know the adventure, we're probably about 2/3 of the way through Lost Mines of Phandelver, which I think is why this question's come up now, because I think somebody's going, we're approaching endgame for this adventure now. So what I will say is I came to the realization about a month or two ago that I don't think either we as a cast or indeed the audience are yet ready to wrap up these characters and their stories. And there has been a lot of things at play throughout the campaign, going on in the background, some that you are aware of, some that you are not aware of. I'm talking to you as well, James and Annina. And there are things at play going on. So there are things in place to allow the campaign, already things in place to allow the campaign to continue on. However, I also, and this is what I was saying to Annina the other day, I also believe in quitting whilst you're ahead. You see many shows, and I'm not talking D&D shows, I'm talking general TV shows here. You see many shows outstay their welcome, and many characters and stories outstay their welcome. So the intent for me, from a producer hat standpoint, is to not continue too far beyond Lost Mines of Phandelver. But there is a story to tell, and I know what the end game is, which I am now actively working towards.
It's terrifying.
It is.
and there have already been things that have happened which are building towards that end game that has already been released. So I'll let you use your imaginations on what that might be. But I do, at the same time, I have been putting things in place, not in the current show. I know where we're going for campaign 2. Let's put it this way. Campaign 2 is already being prepared. So that kind of gives you some sort of idea as to where we are. Endgame is being planned. Season 2, campaign 2 is being planned. Yeah. I don't think I'll say any more than that at this point.
That's all good little teasers, and all good to know. All good to know. We don't want Bardic Quest to end in whatever format or storyline it follows, basically.
There are no plans for ending at this point. No plans for ending.
Good. Okay, James, would you carry on with Sergei, or would you create a new character?
Yeah, I think Sergei's got a very interesting backstory going on, which is slowly being revealed. And I am interested in seeing where that takes Sergei. I'm trying to keep an open mind, because obviously things have looked sour for Sergei in the past. And because of his rather chaotic natures, things do continue to get sour for Sergei. I would love to continue on with Sergei, but obviously, as Wayne was saying, you want to find a good point and not drag that character out for too long. So whenever that good point comes up, then yeah, who knows? Anything can happen.
Oh, well, let's just hope all characters survive to a good and happy ending of some sort.
Well, that is the other variable at play, isn't it?
Yeah. We said this, we could all die.
I'm certainly going to ask a question regarding such fatalities shortly. We're going to lead on to questions regarding your character specifically, and these come from John R. Belliston. He asks, first of all, to you, Annina, what is something that always makes Saga laugh?
What makes Saga laugh? Good question. She is very dour and serious. I think she's hard to make sort of belly laugh, but very many things sort of amuse her. She's very guarded, so she's not going to show it. But actually, in the anniversary episode, I am laughing, and it is as Saga. So it would be some form of shenanigan that either Sergei or Thoric do. Something that you just like, how would you even come up with that? I think not many things would make her laugh, but it would be something totally unexpected that either Thoric or Sergei said or did. That.
I was going to say, it's probably going to be one of the fellas, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so for you, James, as Sergei, John would like to know, does Sergei really only know one song? Is there an in-character reason besides its hilariousness?
It's a great question. I'm not going to reveal too much because there are some hidden meanings behind some of the Sergei song bits. But yeah, there is very much this hilarity that obviously Sergei was on a ship and was probably the ship's bard and only really knew the one song. And everyone was probably getting sick of Sergei singing that one song. I think he definitely knows some sea shanties on there, but I think Sergei is that kind of guy who would just stick to that song, develop it, and take it right to the end. When people have heard it so many times, but yeah, I think he knows a few songs, but I think he uses one, a singular song. That classic thing where you know loads of nursery rhymes, but you only remember one of them.
Yes, that is very true. I learnt it when my daughter came into the world. I'm thinking, oh yeah, how does Mulberry Bush go again? All I could remember was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star because that's the one that always sticks. Just get the questions that escaped. Right, so the next question is... Done that one. Ah, this one's from me. Haha. Out of all your sessions so far, do you have any firm favourite moments or even favourite lines? Mine personally is when Thoric knocked on the door of the worn house, Wayne, and was greeted by an owlbear with gifts in hand. And there are of course always more, but that one definitely sticks out in my mind of lately.
That's a good moment.
Just to comment on just before anybody else answers, just to comment on the worn house thing. That was a lesson that I learnt the hard way. That trying to be coy with your descriptions just is not a good idea as a dungeon master. I'm a mischievous imp by nature, and so I sometimes like to be a little bit coy with descriptions, and that was one of them where I was like, yeah, that was not a clever move. So yeah, that one bit me on the back. Well, bit Sergei on the backside, I think.
Yeah, I think it did.
Particular case. Anyway, sorry.
Favourite moments, ladies and gentlemen.
I think favourite line, which is very evident in the recording, is when Isaac said, "Hold your mountain goats." Caught me by absolute surprise. Why is that not a t-shirt? Because that's the best phrase ever.
I know, it's coming. It's coming.
It's coming. It has to. Hold your mountain goats, honestly. I adore goats anyway, so it was just like a double delicious moment when that happened. I'm going to be selfish, and I love the 2 episodes where Saga's cornered by Halfren Loren and that ridiculous course of events that happened in those 2 episodes in the tavern. Those 2 are my absolute favourites.
Yep.
I forgot about that.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, I think one of my favourite lines was talking about the ribbits. How many ribbits?
Yes. Oh, I love ribbit.
That whole bit. Again, the Halfren Loren section I really enjoyed, but I think I'm going to pick two kind of moments that really stand out. One of them is just the first episode, or the whole first session, just because it has a really good, like, everyone's starting out. There were so many fun interactions. It's like the start of the adventure. And the second one was when we're in the Red Brand hideout and we go up and just knock on the door.
Oh, yes.
You go up and knock on the door.
I go up and knock on it. I'm just laying the face and everyone else's face. And then the scenarios that followed that was good. There's quite a few good moments. It's hard to pick.
You knocked on the door. He said, "Cookies, selling cookies."
Yeah, that was the one.
Oh, and then it was either Saga or Johan's like, "Do you think they've heard our planning?" Because you're all crowded around the door planning.
Yeah, I think that was Johan. Yeah.
There's interactions with Sergei and Johan as well, which I've really enjoyed.
I think you take great pleasure, James, in just winding Johan up.
Yeah.
Not necessarily Ollie, but you personally, James, take great pleasure in winding the character of Johan up, which is, I think, absolutely brilliant to watch.
Yeah.
God, there's so many. And all of those that you guys have said, I'm like, yeah, they're top 10 moments for sure. I mean, in terms of episodes, this is going to feel really disingenuous, but I have to say, and I think Annina will agree, the episode that's coming up for the special edition has set a new bar, I think, personally, for...
I agree.
My personal favourite episode prior to that, which I also think set a new bar at the time, which I'm sure we will come to in a little bit, is the episode after the TPK, in inverted commas, with Johan and Sergei.
Yeah.
That to me felt peak Bardic Quest at that point. In terms of favourite individual moments, though, the one that stands out for me, particularly in game, because I was like, holy shit, was when Saga had been in the Sleeping Giant tap house, and she'd taken Tommy out the back, and they're interrogating. And,
I know exactly what you're about to talk about.
Yeah.
And then this is how it played out. I'm going to do a peek behind the curtain here a little bit. This is how it played out. There's the interrogation scene going on, and we play over Zoom, and we record over Zoom, and the little chat bubble popped up, and it was from James, and he said, "I'm going to go into the tap house. I'm just going to sneak away. I'm going to go into the tap house." And I'm like, holy fuck. On one hand, he hasn't told me what he's planning to do, so what the hell is about to go down? Second of all, never split the party, and he's just like splitting the party, and he's about to head into a tavern full of these red brands, and I'm like, holy crap. Meanwhile, they're all interrogating this guy, completely oblivious. It was, and then the way it played out, as I say, James didn't tell me a word of what he had planned, and you can probably tell on the episode.
Yes, definitely.
And yet it was so utterly genius what he did. That just, for me, is one of the top moments, in amongst all the others that have been mentioned, because they are all great moments. I don't know.
One of the coolest ways I've ever felt while playing D&D in that moment.
Yeah,
it was super cool to go in there and then come out with beers for everyone afterwards. That was just the cherry on the cake.
That took all of us by surprise, because we were there thinking everyone's around. Tommy, we're doing this. And my first thought was, dear God, no. That was honest to God. I was like, everything we just achieved is going to go down the pan. Yeah, that was my first thought. But he pulled it off. It off.
Just got to keep an eye on that. If you can't hear Sergei playing or shouting lines, then he's up to something. If he's too quiet, he's gone.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, well, that brings me actually to a question regarding the near total player kill episode with Sergei and Johan up on the moors with those incredibly terrifying zombie monsters. Gosh, did you even see that coming, Wayne? Did you think that was a risk happening? Did you plan ahead? Because how you handled it narratively was very beautifully well done. I do think it was very well done. But I'm like, did you do that on the hoof or?
It was a kind of a mixture of off the cuff and also planned, if that makes sense. I had an idea going in because that was that encounter was the start of a new session, and I was talking to Annina about this the other day. I had accidentally snookered myself because I had declared exactly how many of these creatures there were at the end of the previous session, which, you know, hindsight's 20/20, right? I just assumed everybody was going to be at the next session. And then we were down not only a player, but we were down the cleric.
Yes.
And I was looking at it and I was going, well, I've said there are 5 of these creatures. And so I can't reduce the number because then I'd just be retconning a little bit further than I'm willing to go.
Okay.
And I was looking at the action economy of it, and I was just like, I could change the monsters maybe, but I think the degree to which they're outnumbered looks highly likely that they're going to go down. So I prepped in the sense of, like, let's just assume they don't go down and will continue on as normal. But I had in the back of my mind, like, this is how things will play out if the worst happens. Because, and I think you kind of called me out on this on Twitter a little bit, and I didn't say too much because I like to be coy. But there were things that had been put in place by the players' actions, and also, you know, talking about things that I have planned as well, that I was like, actually, there are certain things that are in perfect place to make what happened happen. Which I think is like episode 41 or 42, if anybody hasn't caught up. But those around the episode 40 mark, there's a series of events anyway. So yeah, so it was I did kind of say to James and Ollie, I said, look, there's a high likelihood before we start this session that things are going to go south, but I don't want you to panic because there are things in place. But beyond that, there wasn't really much that I prepped. A lot of the following episode was very much kind of, there were germs of ideas that I just played out as they happened. So yeah, it was kind of a mix of both. I knew that it was likely to go that way, but I didn't actively prep the consequences, shall we say. Yeah.
Well, I salute you. It was remarkably well handled and well managed, sir. If anything, it made it just raised the bar on so many levels in terms of narrative, because it gave us that sneaky insight into their background or their relationship with other NPCs. And then, of course, it was only because I was thinking, well, how did he do that? And I thought, oh, she's the lady of the shrine. She's the lady of luck. James put that coin in. And I thought, I just immediately saw all the dots. But the fact that I only realised that afterwards shows how well placed they were, that they were in the background, invisible to us viewers.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget as well, like, as much as I'd love to give myself a huge pat on the back for it, I do get like a month between sessions where I get to go, right, how do I want to... So the last session's played out, I take copious notes, because everything's recorded, because we're putting on a show, so I re-watch all the episodes, I make copious notes, and then I'm like, right, I've now got, like, by the time I've done that, I've probably got about 3 weeks, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to maneuver things around based on the consequences of what's happened so far? So... yeah, I mean, I get plenty of time to meditate on ideas. So whilst, yes, the actual events themselves were kind of off the cuff, it all made a lot of logical sense. I think mainly because I just had so much time to think on it and stew. Yeah, which is a gift that I don't take lightly. That I have. Time, eh?
That actually brings me to a question that we get from Robert Treadwell. He asks to Wayne, as a GM or DM, any advice for newbie ones or fun stories about players throwing your plans off track? Robert.
Funny stories.
Every episode.
I was just about to say episodes 1 to 52 of Bardic Quest. He's a great example of things being thrown off. No, I mean, definitely. I think the story of James going into the tavern after the fact is a great example of being caught completely off guard. But to be perfectly honest, and this kind of does feed into the advice that I would give, and actually most of the advice that I have learned from having done Bardic Quest, even though I've been DMing for like 20 years almost, it's only when we started doing Bardic Quest, and the stakes are a lot higher, right, when you're doing an actual play, because everything has to be coherent and everything has to be consistent and everything has to make sense when you look back. Whereas when you're dealing with a home campaign, you've got a little bit of more of artistic license, because, you know, if you're in a 5-year campaign, nobody's going to remember the precise details of exactly what went down, whereas everything's recorded for us. So that has made me kind of have to raise my game quite a lot. And I think even just between episode 1 and where we are now, I feel as though I've improved dramatically. But anyway, so yeah, most episodes, everything does veer off. And my main advice, which I've learned from doing Bardic Quest, would be don't ever, as a DM, prepare a story. Just prepare scenarios. Prepare the people, prepare the events that are going to happen around the characters, prepare the locations, prepare the things that fill up those locations, and beyond that, just let it play out as it's going to play out. And actually, I found that to be, from a Dungeon Master's perspective, much more rewarding for me, because I then get to be taken by surprise. Like, there's so much of Bardic Quest and how we've played Lost Mines that has played out so differently to what I had expected, and has provided me with so many more toys to play with as a Dungeon Master. There are so many events that could have happened such a different way, and it would have taken the campaign on a completely different trajectory. And it's about, if you prepare the scenarios rather than the story, it means then that for the players, and if you're doing an actual play for the audience, it allows the world to feel much more alive, because every action then has consequence. And that's the main thing after I've taken my notes. It's the main thing that I ask myself, which is, well, how does this change things now? How does this change the plot? Are there key players that are no longer in play? Are there people like Glassstaff that have escaped, and how does that affect things? And so yeah, scenarios over plot, absolutely number one tip I could give for sure. But
Advice, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and again, that's something that I've learned from doing Bardic Quest rather than home campaigns. I mean, there's an element of like adjusting that I've always done, but I've had to take it to a whole new level now. But I do want to I'd love to know what James thinks as well, because I know James DMs. So I'd kind of love to know what his view would be. And
main
Annina as well, if
advice.
you do DM, but I don't think you do you, Annina?
I have not DM'd yet. I'm sure it will come a time when I have to, because in my home group, for instance, I'm the only one who hasn't even run a one-shot. The only thing that's stopping me is I don't think I'd enjoy it as much as being a player, but I will do it at some point. And actually, I would want to probably run a horror one-shot or something like Vampire the Masquerade, just to make it like, just to try something different from what I play, and just to be like, let's do this. And if people hate it, they won't ask me to do it again. So yeah, but I haven't yet.
What would be the main advice I'd give? The main advice, I know it's a bit cliche to say, but as a GM and a DM, sometimes you can often get quite like bogged down. And I know I've definitely been there, and I'm sure Wayne has before. You get caught up and you're like, did people enjoy that? Was that good? That bit was bad. I've ran that bit, poorly or whatever. I think the main thing I'd just say is just have fun. As long as it's something that you enjoy running and the players enjoy playing, and it's all respectful and professional, and everyone's having a good time. And there are, you know, if you need to set rules down, whatever, as long as you're having a good time, really, that's it. It kind of goes back to that old, like, you know, we were at one point it's going to sound a little bit arsey, but humans were like, you know, cave folk gathering around fire telling stories, and that's, in a way, that's kind of what D&D is. It's just a bunch of humans getting together, telling stories and having a good time. So yeah, that's the advice I'd give. If you're looking for inspiration, go read books around the stuff. Like if you're doing a Tolkien-based world, go watch Many Rings of Power, whatever. Go read the books. Just find inspiration from everywhere and just have a good old time, because it is fun. It is very fun.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. I was actually going to ask. Now I know, is it D&D Beyond you guys use for your character sheets?
Mm-hmm.
Play?
Mm-hmm.
And now I know I always hear dice rolling when there's sessions coming out. So do you have a particular set of dice for your characters, or that you use as the DM way?
Yes, I have Saga specific dice.
Hold fire.
Oh, we're gonna have a dice show and tell. Oh, now what colours could they be? Are they going to be glittery? Are they going to have ducks inside? Mine, personally.
You've asked D&D players to bring their dice collections. I have many.
Oh, that sound. Oh, so good.
Oh, yeah. Let me do the full lot. There you go.
Oh.
All right. Where do I start?
We're going to have to put an explicit content warning on this, I think,
Yes.
for some people.
Censored.
Warning, dice will be rolled.
So I'll show mine off while everyone's kind of getting ready. So I've got loads of dice, but the ones I always use in every campaign, every time I DM, they're like the dice that I hold dear are these metal. Oh, let's see if I actually pick up these metal. Oh, okay, I've just vanished.
Yeah.
These like bluey gold metal ones. So this is the dice
Very
I'll use
nice.
from Sergei as well. So that's where those terrible rolls come from.
I don't have as much dice as most D&D players, just because I'm very, very picky. I'm like, it has to be perfect. But I do have dice for each character. Like my bard has different dice, my beastmaster has different dice, and I did get, so for Saga I bought my first set of metal dice.
Ooh.
They are, I feel like I'm on like YouTube. They are teal. They're teal and silver.
Oh,
Good.
They're heavy.
Nice.
They're clunky and heavy, so they were, I treated myself to some metal dice, and I also used, my brother got me a birthday present out of the blue, and they are sort of ice dice.
Ooh, nice.
And I think they suit Saga very well. Sort of
Definitely.
because my favorite color is green, so usually everything I own is green. But for Saga, I use sort of Viking ice.
Oh, Viking ice. I love that. Yeah. Anything Viking-y gets me. It's fine.
Yeah.
Don't look too closely at my bookshelves.
Yeah, I'm using my roots for Saga.
Okay then, DM.
So I have I have a few different sets of dice, but a lot of them are from things like starter sets and things. But I have two main sets of dice that I use, which are always sat in front of me, and I'll just pick and choose in the moment. So first of all, there's the more the less extravagant dice, shall we say, which are these nice purple dice, because purple is my favorite color. So there's those, which these get a lot of use. But if I'm feeling a little bit more extravagant, these are a recent addition, which I think I posted on the Bardic Quest Instagram, perhaps, actually, which was a birthday gift from my partner and my stepdaughter, because they caught me looking at that website of dice that I think you sent me, Becky, with all like the amethyst dice, and I was like, oh. So they were like, we know what we're getting for his birthday, which are these metal dice. Now they are actually, you probably can't see, but they are actually hollow.
Oh my god!
Is that the one? Is it made from? Is it the dragon or the kraken one?
It's the dragon ones. Let me see if I can find.
I think a part of me just died inside.
Let me do the D4.
My soul is with Valkyrie RPG. I get all my dice from them.
Can you see the dragon motif? I don't know if it's in focus.
Blurry. There.
There we go.
Yes, can see
Dragon
it there.
I
motif
love
on them.
metal D4 dice because if you drop them, they are lethal.
Yes.
Oh, it's like Lego has nothing on stepping on a metal
D4.
D4. I have stepped on the D4 from that metal set.
I've stepped on too much Lego to care to admit. I don't want to test the D4 theory.
Okay, so here's a little bit of a throwback question. So, for example, yourselves, Annina and James, you've been sadly missed from a few of the escapades of Johan and Thoric. So when you're not able to participate in a live session and thus recording when an episode comes out, do you, like us fans, watch it back, or do you wait to hear it from the mouths of the players or Wayne himself about what you've missed out on?
I watch it, but I try and remember. I'll watch it because I want to know, because I want to know what they got up to, but I will remember what Saga knows, or try to be like, well, Saga doesn't know. I know, but she doesn't. So that's what I do. And being away on tour was painful because I'd be like, they're filming today and I'm not there. I've missed her terribly, but I am back. And I think she makes a really cool return in the anniversary special. So that makes me feel better.
Yeah, I on the other side of it, actually, I usually like to get into the session and then see what's going on. And then keep it entirely in character and then watch the sessions once I've kind of figured out from playing what's happened, then go back and watch the actual sessions. I just like the chaos. I like the you having no idea of what's going on.
That also suits Sergei just coming in and being like, what are we doing? No idea. Okay.
On the flip side of that, when you do have to miss a session and you obviously tell you, Wayne, I'm sorry, I've got other things going on, taking me far, far away. Do you and Wayne then have a chat about what your character is doing when they're not with the group, or to give like a plausible reason for them to have just popped out? Because I know, of course, with Thoric, when he missed out on that battle, he went off into some dark place, couldn't connect to his magic, and then found it again and returned. I personally would love to see that, but maybe another day. But I don't know, of course, with you two being away for so long, what?
I messaged Wayne, and when I need to know exactly what Saga's been up to. These are my thoughts. So we had detailed, like, this is what she's been doing.
Yeah, full blown.
Yeah.
Meeting.
Yeah.
Saga, didn't we? Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes we will and sometimes we won't. I like where I can to, and I said this at the beginning, and I think I've managed this successfully once or twice. I like where I can to know when people aren't going to be able to make it, so that I can write the characters out and then write them back in. But most of the time when people can't make it, to be fair, it's because life happens, right? Rather than because it's like, yeah, it's my sister's wedding, so it's been very difficult to actually write people out. And where I can, I try to have a reason to write people back in. But again, that sometimes can be quite tricky, because sometimes it's like, well, how the hell are we gonna just like justify the fact that Sergei's suddenly like in room 7 of a dungeon? Just
to be
out
honest,
of nowhere.
that's so typical of Sergei.
Well, I mean, yes, that's true. Sergei was probably a bad example, but yes. And so sometimes it's difficult. And so when I'm in the place of like, I think we're just going to have to try and wing it somehow, it will be a little bit less discussed. But like sometimes it will just be a few messages, text messages like, what do you think they've been doing? Oh yeah, we'll do this. Great. And then other times, like with Saga, particularly because Saga's been gone for so long, it was like, right, we have like, I think we worked out a week in universe time where she's been gone, and it's like we really need to justify where she's been and what she's been doing. So yeah, so it's kind of on a case by case basis, really. I think, which is a non-answer, I guess.
I'm going to make a triumphant return. So yes, I look forward to that very much. Ooh, what other questions did I have? That's a fun one. If Thoric, Saga, Sergei, and Johan were ever put into a fight to the death at maximum level with all your abilities and spells and tricks and trades, who would win?
Not Sergei. That's a good question.
My bet would be down to Johan and Saga. I think that's my bet. I don't know.
It's depending on like the terrain as well. Because if
Yeah.
you're in a dark alley, Johan's going to get the upper hand.
Yeah, it's
You're
this
in,
the
like,
that rogues are always a bit OP,
Mm.
but like brute force, it's hard. But yeah, Sergei would be the first of all.
Sergei would be inspiring everyone else to hit him.
You see, I'm going to be
Oh, you're not
controversial
that
here,
bad.
and I'm going to vouch for Sergei
You reckon?
Why?
because, and here's my logic here. My logic is that he is so beyond logic that he would be so unpredictable in what he did that it would just throw everybody off, and he'd somehow come out on top. That's what I reckon. That's my thing.
Fair. Yeah, that's
To be
true.
fair, he'd go invisible for as long as he could until everyone else was looking weak.
In character, if you ask that question, Saga would say herself, like without, she wouldn't even blink. In character, she'd say herself.
Definitely.
But as a player, I'd be like, I think the rogue has an edge, just because bloody sneak attack. So yeah.
But also, if we look at mechanics, let's not count Thoric out because
I'm not. I'm just thinking.
Thoric's got shield, armor, healing,
and healing. Yeah,
like he's going to be able to take. In fact, has Thoric ever dropped?
Don't think so.
Gosh,
he hasn't. He's been close.
Who's dropped the most? I don't even I know the question.
Johan dropping in the Goblin Cave. I remember Johan dropping then.
Quite literally. Good old Featherfall.
See, I can only imagine Thoric just standing at the side saying, "Will you all stop fighting? Stop fighting! Why are we fighting?" A proper mother hen, kind of trying to calm the children down. Stop squabbling.
I don't think they wouldn't do a battle royale unless they were like cursed to fight each other. They'd fight, but not to the death. Not to the death.
No. I've only ever asked that because I remember seeing it being done in Critical Role, and it was just fun to see because then they all had like new spells, abilities. Yeah. Because there's always like levels of strength and skill in things. But,
yes.
Oh, here's one from Robert Treadwell. Favorite monster and why?
Oh,
good question.
Across the whole of D&D, monsters.
I mean, I've got one. It's been
Go
my
on.
favourite monster since I was playing in 3.5, which is the Lich.
Oh, yeah.
I just love the Lich. Yeah, I just think the lore behind the Lich is really cool. It's the perfect sort of big bad evil guy. Like, and then Voldemort came along and ruined the idea of it. Never mind. Kind of took all the. Now everybody thinks of liches and they're like, oh, it's just Voldemort, and it's like, no, Voldemort is just a lich.
Yeah.
The other way around. But anyway, yeah, I'm Team Lich all the way.
Oh, I love dragons. I love all monsters, really. There's not a hell of a lot of them, but do you know what? It's going to be a bit of an odd one. But I think I'm going to
flump, aren't you?
No, I was tempted to. But I think because I've used them a couple of times and I just really like them as like a low-level characters, this is a good enemy, is a Displacer Beast.
I was thinking Displacer Beast. I love them.
Really cool. Or a Gelatinous Cube.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I saw that trailer for the new D&D film...
Yes. That's how I know about both those things, because they were both in the trailer, and of course the feed became full of people taking each scene shot apart and saying, oh, that's in D&D, that's not, but that's in D&D, and that's not.
And as somebody pointed out, when watching that trailer. It's got to be bad when your choice that you make is to jump inside the gelatinous cube.
Yeah.
Such a mistake. Why did you
mistake.
It's a Sergei move.
Yeah.
That happened to my bard, not by choice. They got stuck in it twice.
Oh no.
Ouch.
Twice in the gelatinous cube. And I was an elf bard, so I have about 1 hit point. You know, I'm made of paper, basically. So
I was talking about iconic D&D monster over the weekend as well, which I've really come to appreciate a lot more in my home campaign, which is the purple worm. Because actually, like, encountering one of those things is really freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
And they're so iconic as well.
I do like any monster with sort of mind control aspects. Like,
hang on, could you say that again? Mind control.
Yeah. Well, we've already met one.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That I just think it makes it so creepy.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it from the sort of, it adds a bit of horror to know someone that can. So I like those ones.
But you know
I can read your mind villains.
Yeah. They're horrible.
So our BBG is going to be something that can control your mind. So just, prepare yourself.
It's going to be a mind-controlling, gelatinous displacer beast.
Yes.
Terrifying.
But do you know what? Do you know what monster I think is really underrated? Is the goblin.
Yeah.
And I think,
I've got PTSD from that episode.
But I think that episode is a great example.
I thought we'd never get. I thought that episode would never end. Honestly,
to be fair, so did I. They are, and it's their action economy that makes them so nasty. Is, as you say, the fact that they can hit and hide and hit and hide, and it's not actually the fact that they hit hard. It's just that they become so hard to hit.
Yes,
because they're just
defend yourself.
Yeah. They're
And
always 40 feet away. Always.
Yeah.
Now, I remember when I first came across Bardic Quest, it was due to the wondrous algorithm in Instagram, surprisingly enough. I think it was the article you wrote, Wayne, about how you wanted to kind of like explore this as almost like a big improvisation game, a game for actors, as you called it. And I read the article, I thought, yeah, he's right. I'm going to watch this. And then, of course, it came, and I was like, yep, followed it ever since, and here we are, a year later. So, I'm guessing, this question is more to Annina and James. Would you agree that there is a lot of drama and improvisation and acting involved in D&D? And the fun almost hides it, so no one realises they're doing a lot of drama and acting on top of it all.
I think it is perfect for actors. Absolutely perfect. So I play with non-actors, and it definitely, once you get non-actors to really get into the role play, because with actors it happens instantly, because that's what we do. That's when the fun really starts. And I do enjoy seeing non-actors like get into it, because at first they might be really shy. They're like, no, I don't want to do a voice. And like a year later they're like, well, that's an accent. You're fully committing. And yeah, definitely. I think it is the perfect. I've done loads of improv, loads of theatre for years and years and years. For me, it's the perfect mix of, I have this really, Stanislavski approach character with a long backstory.
Yes.
Poor Wayne, because I sent him a novel.
Yes,
basically, of my backstory. Like, this is what's happened. Do with that what you will.
I say pour the rest of them, because you set the bar really, really high for what is considered a backstory, and everything else is like, I've sent you a few paragraphs, and I'm like, where's your backstory?
So yeah, I think you can make a really detailed character, but it does feel so immersive, because you don't know how the other characters are going to react. So everything has that kind of real life peril of, I'm going to say this, I don't know what they'll do after that. And that is thrilling for me. That's the thrill of improv, is not knowing where this is going, but it has consequences because we have a relationship. And, you know, it's that. That's what I love about it.
I think as you kind of hit adulthood, you start to, it's that very sad realization where you start to lose that sense of fun and play. And I think it's the perfect gateway drug into just play and improv, and it just opens up doors. Because, you know, if you go to someone who's not an actor and you go, let's just improv a scene together and let's do something crazy and wacky, it's absolutely not.
No, it's not going to happen.
Not happening, nowhere near. But if you start playing D&D, that just kind of happens naturally, and then it brings people into that. And yeah, I usually play with mostly actors, so I end up doing a lot of the role play stuff, and it's very, very fun. It's considered for hours just talking in character, rolling a dice.
I think some of the best, most funnest things to role play aren't combat. I love combat. Like everyone likes to be a hero, but like when we get stuck in these, especially the ruses we have to pull, like everyone has to go with this line, okay? That is like when Saga was in the tap house. I have never sweated so much in my life. I was there going, how is this gonna go? Yeah, that was true sort of tension.
Yeah,
because I could really screw this up for everyone.
Yeah, I think the episodes where we had I can never pronounce
Halfred,
Halfred and Levan, whatever. I think those episodes were great because that was just it was just all of us kind of going into the role play part.
Yeah.
Obviously weighing a character into the role play, and then obviously we were all playing around, and it was just great fun.
Yeah, that was quite the practical joke. I think that almost, I think maybe went a little too far. But yeah, that was really fun to play out. And I think as well, as you say, the going into the tap house, because I was kind of, it was one of those brilliant sessions where as a DM you're sat there and you're listening to the plan and you're like, this is gonna go so badly for everyone, and I was just sat waiting for all of it to go to shit, and it never did. That was what was incredible, was the fact on paper it was like, this cannot go well, like this is gonna go somebody's gonna like either get captured or killed in this, and it just played out so brilliantly. And that's what I love. Like I said to the guys when we started doing this, is like, I'm not gonna fudge dice rolls. Like the dice rule, and if you make a stupid mistake, I'm not gonna bail you out. Like, so your stupid decisions are your stupid decisions, and story be damned if that's what you're gonna do. Like, fine. But going back to the question, it's interesting actually because there are a lot of people, and it's well known, there are a lot of people that work in D&D, even at Wizards of the Coast, that have a theatre background. But actually, when you really strip back Dungeons and Dragons, if you take the dice out of the equation, it is just acting.
Yeah, it's making
improv.
a script and characters.
Yeah,
each to your own taste, and then putting it together and see what happens.
There's even a very well respected British filmmaker that basically follows the Dungeons and Dragons model in a way to make his films. He wouldn't know that maybe he would. Maybe he has played D&D, but his whole method is Mike Lee. His whole method of making films is he grabs his actors together and he goes, right, I want you to make a character. I don't know what the film's about, but we're going to film this film, and we're going to improv it, and then it will the story will reveal itself as we go.
Yeah.
And he's made dozens and dozens of films that are very, very well respected, and it's basically just that, except the difference is we roll dice and we don't shoot on location. But aside from that, it's not too dissimilar. and I think from an actor's perspective, as I think I said in the article, you know, it's very, very difficult as an actor to be like every other creative field. If you're a photographer, it's like, I'm going to pick up my camera today and I'm going to take some photos, or, you know, I'm going to pick up my guitar and write a song. It's very, very difficult as an actor to have that creative outlet, because acting is a communal job. You can't really do it in solitude, really, because even like doing a monologue and posting it on YouTube isn't really the same, because it's all about that human interaction that happens. And so then you're in the realm of like putting on a one-man show or writing a show, and there's all of these other skills that come in when you try and do acting solo. But D&D kind of removes that, because you don't have to play with other actors, right? As Annina was saying, you don't have to play with other actors, but it allows you to flex that muscle a little bit when you're downtime between jobs, between adventures, as an actor, right? When you've got that downtime, you can then just kind of stop yourself from getting rusty. Yeah.
So, in terms of your fellow actors, those who you've working with, I know either you're currently on tour on your recent Chapter House Theatre Company production.
Yes.
I myself saw you in Romeo and Juliet.
She did. Thank you so much.
When I saw you stand up, I thought, oh, she's starting it all. Oh, brilliant. Anyway, when you explain that you're doing this D&D show called Bardic Quest, what is the response you get from fellow actors? Do you have to explain the mechanics of D&D so they can get how it's improv, or have any of them then gone to watch or even play D&D after learning about your own role?
I have so an improv group I used to be a part of. We played some role play, because it is improv. It was just improv to a common goal versus. So I managed to get in that group. I managed to get them to try. It wasn't D&D. It was I think it's Dungeon Quest, which is like a simplified version, shorter version of D&D, but still, you know, there's a wizard, there's a barbarian, that kind of thing. So improv people, it's easy to explain, like, we're improving characters and this is our common goal. With actors, some of them did watch our show, and once you say improv but you create a very detailed backstory, they understand that. It's just the gamification bit that they don't understand. So a lot of actors haven't played, they haven't gamed in any way, but they did watch Bardic Quest, and they called me the D&D celebrity, and I was like, thank you. Thank you. That was very sweet of them. But yeah, I think they would be up for it. It's whether, I mean, D&D is still fantasy as a genre. So if you don't like fantasy as a genre, maybe not the best game to get them into it, but I think they are far easier in a way to get to try the game. Because, you know, we're going to play characters.
It's that classic thing when you tell actors about D&D, it's like, role play, amazing.
Yeah.
I've got to roll and add numbers. No, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Or when you go, we're going to play with plastic little figures, and then they go,
Yeah, I think there's still a tiny bit of stigma, you know, in pop culture to being like the paraphernalia and the dice. But I've always been a nerd, so it's I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I still have.
I've never been cool. It's fine.
I still have scars from my teenage years of
being a
nerd.
Yeah.
So I'm not that vocal. I'm kind of living a double life, really. With it, to be perfectly honest, I'm not that vocal about.
We're your secret family.
Yeah, I mean, the intention, kind of part of the intention of Bardic Quest was, in a way, kind of me coming out of the nerd closet and going, I am a big nerd. And then, like, I did it, and then I was like, this feels uncomfortable, I'm just going to go back into my closet. Kind of thing. So I kind of live a double life, really, in that respect. So it's kind of why I do the Twitter lurking, like what we were talking about, right? Because I'm like, I can't mention it to people that don't know. I need to, like, make sure that they're safe, that they're my people.
It's
Yeah.
almost like we're the wizards in Harry Potter and everyone else is a muggle who doesn't know D&D.
Yes.
Because I know my
Yeah.
mum,
It is a
bless her,
bit
when
like
I
that.
first told her that, hey, I'm going to talk to this crew on YouTube about D&D, she goes, oh God, D&D? I'm like, yes, Dungeons and Dragons. She's a primary school teacher, so I tried to simplify it in ways that she could, like, you basically use dice to do maths. And then you learn about luck and chance and kind of like ratios of good and bad. And then it's got storytelling, and you can also learn about empathy and relationships and saving the world and heroism and that kind of thing. It's brilliant for kids. It's why I think all drama groups should just do this. Instead of doing drama at school, we should all play D&D. Everyone would have so much fun, and it's got maths in it, and it'll boost our numeracy skills as a nation. See?
I think
Solved.
basically all schools should just be D&D.
Yeah.
Maths,
Definitely.
maths,
Yep.
English, drama.
Life lessons.
I mean, you can.
Yeah.
Hey, I've had a game where physics has come into it before. I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, I did
Definitely.
have a player who was like a physics scientist at my table, so it was kind of like gonna happen. But yeah, physics has come into it, so like we can basically amalgamate all of the education system into
D&D.
It
into
is
D&D.
life in a different context. It is just life, I think, and that is what I love.
And I think the world would be a much better place for it.
Totally.
Everybody would be happy.
There might be more Sergeis in the world, though, which
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
only one Sergei.
There's
The
only one
universe can't
Sergei.
cope with two. It's only got one.
Just disrupts the space-time continuum.
It would be like the multiverse of madness in Doctor Strange if there was two.
Yeah, can't have two Sergeis.
So here's a question for you, Wayne. Obviously, as the DM, you have to play multiple NPCs. Do some of them you have planned in terms of their physique, their character, personality, secrets, voice, or do you kind of ad-lib, ad hoc on the hoof, put them together depending on how you feel or what you think they might be like? Like, I always remember the old lady that Sergei ran up to go tell you.
Oh,
And I'm like,
I love that old
"What
lady.
made him pick an old
Margaret.
lady? Where's she come from?"
Yeah, I was just about to say actually. I was like, I don't think they've actually encountered an NPC that I've had to make up on the cuff. And then you mentioned Margaret, and she was definitely off the cuff. I mean, I am just again, I'm an imp by nature, right? And like my stepdaughter, she watches it religiously, bless her. And she always says to me, she's like, I always am excited with each episode to want to find out which of your voices is going to appear in this episode, because I am just nuts when it comes to voices. And like I think it was when I was at uni, I actually for Lent one year somebody challenged me to go through 40 days and 40 nights only talking in my own voice outside of acting class. And I lasted 2 hours before I realised that this was a no-go zone.
Yeah.
And it was a wasted effort, because I had broke my Lent about 10 times in that 2-hour space, and that was not for want of trying. So I guess I have, in some ways, I kind of have these stock characters in my head and in my voice anyway, that I can just kind of like, that'll do. And the old woman thing was just the imp in me coming out in the moment, I think. I'm just like, yeah, an old woman, that'll be fun. So it was probably more for my own entertainment than anything else.
Sometimes the characters you make up on the spots are the best ones, because obviously as players we know that we can kind of be like, Wayne's clearly just had to quickly make something up, which kind of makes the character even more lovable.
You can tell by the name usually when their name is something like
Margaret.
I mean, it happened to Saga when it was like, right, fake name. I've forgotten all names that ever existed.
Rachel, Susan.
I think I said Laura, and
Was it Laura?
That was it, Laura.
I'm surprised you didn't use your own, because that could totally fit into.
You would think I would
That
remember what my
too
own name
easy.
was.
That would have been far too easy.
That would have been the clever thing to do.
Yeah, like I said, I forgot all names that existed apart from Saga, and then literally went through a Rolodex of my friends and went, Laura.
That's a very good idea. That's like an active rollable table of character and NPC names, your phone book.
Yeah, because I was
Compared to your
literally
fantasy.
thinking, I remember thinking it has to sound like a fantasy name and nothing. I was just like blank. And then Laura, which sounds like the most modern, normal girl's name.
When I end up coming out with a random name that is definitely not a fantasy name,
Yeah.
I make myself feel better later on in my DM notes. I spell it differently. I'm like, see, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not
Margaret Ray.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah.
That's how I get around it in my own
I
mind.
see.
But nobody sees those notes, so
Yeah.
it's only for me. But like Laura will be spelled Lora
Yeah.
rather than Laura.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, see, fancy name.
Well, as someone who's attempting to plan their first homebrew campaign, just because I thought, I've got an imagination, I read loads of books, let's see if I can drum up something. I'm still deep in the black hole of endlessly plotting, writing lore, making maps. I have found that rollable tables does assist me when my brain hits a blank. Do you use rollable tables at all, Wayne, in your planning or during any sessions?
I love rollable tables.
Yay.
I love them. Yeah, I mean, again, when we did session 0 for this, I did say to the group, I was like, if there is one like motto for the way I run a D&D game, it is just like lean into the chaos. So I love a rollable table. Now, because I love the chaos of rollable tables so much, I'll very rarely roll them in session.
Okay.
I will often pre-roll scenarios. So then it can be like, right, if they go out into the forest, I have a handful of scenarios that I can go, right, I've pre-rolled. So they won't have necessarily been pre-planned in terms of like, I've created the scenario myself, but I will have rolled a few elements of it and maybe then gone, oh, to make that make sense, I'll grab this from over here and grab that from over there. And then we've got a nice narrative cohesion. But a lot of that stuff will be birthed from some rollable tables somewhere and then tweaked to, and then I can just cherry pick in the moment and be like, yeah, that one and that one and that one. And then we have a session kind of thing if they go completely off the beaten track, which, you know, they're wont to do.
In terms of other game mechanics, obviously you're the only group that I watch on YouTube, besides one other, that plays the combat in the theatre of the mind, as you've called it, Wayne. So without using a virtual tabletop map with tokens and stat rolls down the side. Is there a practical reason you chose to do that, or did you just want to do it in theatre of the mind because you felt that's a better amphitheatre, I guess, for the combat?
There are a few reasons for it. One of the main things was that in terms of content creation, my background is in podcasts, so I had originally envisioned what then became Bardic Quest as a podcast first. So of course having a VTT is just not conducive to good audio entertainment. And then I thought, well, actually, if I then film it, we then got YouTube as well, and then it kind of evolved into being a YouTube first thing with a podcast as well. So there was partly that, but also I find, and I don't know how the others feel about this, and maybe it's because I grew up on 3.5 and then 4th edition came in, and then I kind of have I didn't like 4th edition. Well, no, that's maybe a bit strong. It's not that I didn't like 4th edition. It just didn't feel like D&D for me. And 4th edition was very heavy. You could not play 4th edition without a grid. You couldn't play it Theatre of the Mind without having to drastically rework the rules, because everything was like, they move. Like, it was all in squares. They got rid of, like, the foot measurements and stuff, and it was all, like, everything was grid-based. It was just impossible to play without grid. So I hold the grid in a little bit of contempt. A little bit. Because when I played 3.5, pre-4th edition, the grid was considered... It was it was kind of, at least the community that I played with, it was like, you play Theatre of the Mind, and if you want, you play with the grid. That was at least the community I played with. And so then this idea, then 4th edition made the zeitgeist go into, you play the grid, Or if you want, you can play Theatre of the Mind, and it switched. So I've always preferred Theatre of the Mind, mainly because I think there's something about a grid and having miniatures, which, by the way, I love minis. I love, like, if money was not a thing, I would have so much Dwarven Forge, it'd be untrue.
Yeah.
Because I love that immersive and I love that tactile element. But there's something about that I think kind of, it turns it into a board game. And the storytelling, I find, stops happening so much. Like, there are other shows, and there aren't many shows that I've seen that do Theatre of the Mind, which I'm kind of a bit surprised by, because to me it feels like Theatre of the Mind is the obvious choice for a storytelling medium. But there are some actual plays that I've watched where they do either minis or VTT, and I struggle to watch them. Maybe it's a taste thing, but I just struggle to follow. Because also, like, I'm the sort of person, I like to have something in the background when I'm doing stuff, you know, and having a VTT or a grid of any kind means you kind of have to be watching and you have to be glued to it, because again, the storytelling kind of takes a bit more of a backseat, and then you start moving into, so I'm going to move over here, and then I'm going to move over there, and it's just easier to just remove that entirely and then allow the storytelling to happen that way. So yeah, there's some logistical reasons and some narrative reasons, I guess. Yeah. Again, another long-winded answer from me.
No, that's fine. It was kind of like a deep question. But in terms of when you do combat with these guys, then do you have even just a sketch of a map of where they're fighting, so you know where they are, where the monsters are, so to speak, so you can then describe to them what?
Generally speaking, I have a very good idea of where everybody is from notes and sketches, and sometimes I will have a grid up so I can see, so then I can describe things precisely. But I don't, because I do that because sometimes I think Theatre of the Mind can get a little bit crazy, particularly if you're dealing with big numbers. So it's more when there are big numbers in combat, I'll often have a grid, so that I can be a little bit more like, there are 5 people over here and 7 people over there. Like my home campaign, which we also play Theatre of the Mind, there was an encounter that must have been 40 monsters in it.
Wow.
And I was just like, I have to have a grid here, just so that I'm aware. But I try not to get bogged down with the specifics of the grid. I try to still keep it as loose as Theatre of the Mind allows, otherwise we may as well just play on a grid, right? But yeah, sometimes it'll just be notes. So I will change that up depending on what the situation calls for. But I'll usually have a very good idea of where everybody is, at least. But I like, for the Theatre of the Mind thing, and this is something that I'm trying to get into the habit of doing, I like and I think this comes from 13th Age, because their combat is mostly Theatre of the Mind, is this idea of rather than placing people and being like, they are 15 feet away from you, I'm starting to try and build myself into the habit of everything being relative to the character's speed. So, for example, Thoric is 25 feet because he's a dwarf speed, whereas Saga might be 30. And so then it's like, okay, rather than saying they're 15 feet away from you, it's like, okay, yeah, they're close enough to you that you could get there without having to dash, or that you'd have to dash to get to them, or even if you dash, you're just not going to get to them. And that then, it's loose enough that everybody's got a very good idea of ranges, but also that it's not too you're not kind of wearing a straitjacket of the imagination, if you will.
No, that's really interesting, because it was obviously very new to me as a player who's only ever seen like Critical Role before and played it with maps, albeit sketched on a grid square sheet. I think the one episode that always stuck in my mind was when you went to the Red Brand's hideout under the mansion, and you found stuff that get the eye monster. Because I always remember you saying, okay, there's 2 pillars there, there's a big ravine, there's 2 bridges, and I think it took a couple of times for me to picture it, but I think also for you, the group kept saying, okay, well, where am I now if I've gone this way against the ravine?
Yeah, that was the point at which that's when I started to realise that actually this other version of Theatre of the Mind have been, which I think, to be because again, 3.5 was when Theatre of the Mind was the dominant way of playing, at least from my memory. And so it's been a long time. Like 2008, I think, was when 4th edition came out. So it's been over 10 years. And it was only when the pandemic started that I went back to Theatre of the Mind as my main way of playing. And it was so at that point it was over 10 years since I played Theatre of the Mind. So there was some rust there. And so then I was trying to do this amalgamation of Theatre of the Mind and the grid, and it was after that encounter that I went, this approach to ranges is just not gonna hold because it's just too confusing. So that's when I start from there is where I started to train myself into this near, far, and really far away kind of approach. Because that even from my perspective as a DM, I was like, oh yeah, this hasn't quite hit the mark because there's a lot going on. So yeah, I definitely felt that in session for sure.
It was a good combat though. I've never come across that monster before, and so that was a really interesting encounter. It's like, oh my gosh, it's got one big eye and it can read your thoughts.
Yeah, that one's straight from the campaign book. But yeah, always exciting to. I've been a player in that encounter as well, and it's always creepy. I love it.
Okay, another question. Has any of you played, well, I'm going to assume you haven't played The Lost Mines of Phandelver before, or have you both played it before?
I have played it before, and it didn't go or feel the same at all in any way. I'd forgotten I'd played it. It was in my home group, the DM there said, because he watched that episode and went, oh yeah, we did that. And I went, yeah, we did. We did. Like, it just different characters, even you just don't remember. You don't remember what's gonna come at you if you replay. You just don't, because the circumstances are different and people are playing it different and you choose different paths. So yeah, I remember thinking, oh, that sounds familiar, and then just that was it. The name sounded familiar, but I've played that section before. It doesn't help you if you replay it. You don't remember any tricks. You don't. It doesn't help. So you're.
I've ran it twice before as a DM. It was the first ever thing I ran as a DM 6 years ago, when me and my friends from home were playing, and it was just totally not to spec. Like, I don't even know what we were rolling for, but we were just having fun. I think one of the players had a dragon at some point. It got that ridiculous. But yeah, again, it's that thing of like, no matter how many times you have played it, it is always going to be different. And especially with the way that Wayne has ran it, in a kind of way that it's like already expected that some of the audience members and the players know certain bits, and Wayne's kind of gone around it in a way that's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that to happen though, or like, etc., X, Y, and Z, So yeah, and you never know what's going around the corner.
Yeah, I think Ollie and Isaac have declared, I think it was in last week's episode, they're now at the point where they have no expectations of what is good or bad anymore. Which at that point I'm like, my job here is done.
Because I've always wondered if there's kind of like one big central storyline, i.e. finding the dwarf trader and finding out who Black Spider is. But then I remember when you went to the town hall to speak to the mayor, who was convinced there were dragons, and that you were dragons, he was not going to come out. And there was that notice board with all these little jobs taking you to different places. I thought, so there are all the side quests that they could go on if they go on it. And then, of course, now you've gone off, well, with Johann's leading the charge after his quarry, but then you've run into the missing cleric, gone off to meet an owlbear in a hut and that kind of thing. I'm thinking, how far does this world go to let them kind of like just keep wandering and eventually meet back to a side quest or even meet back to the main one, does it have quite a range for you, Wayne, as like the dungeon master to use, or do you have to keep raining or creating bits to add on as they keep wandering?
So there are some. Well, when I put together this campaign, I was looking at both Lost Mine of Phandelver and the Dragon of Icespire Peak, which is in the Essentials kit, which is also set in Phandalin. But Dragon of Icespire Peak is essentially a book of side quests. It's much more traditional kind of, you go to a town, you pick up a quest, and then you go, you complete the quest, you come back to town, you get your reward, and then have some downtime, and then you go on your next adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I love sandbox style play anyway, so I'm just going to kind of amalgamate the two, which has been interesting because pretty much nothing from Dragon of Icespire Peak has actually happened. So at this point, I'm kind of like, it's just Lost Mine pretty much now. But I did say to the guys when we first started, I was like, I want you to think of the published adventure as the backdrop. It's what's going on around your characters rather than it necessarily being the central plot. It's the through line rather than the actual plot itself. And I want you to consider this to be about your characters. Now, chapters 1 to 2 were very much driven by the Lost Mine plot. But actually, I would say that this latest chapter, the spider web stuff, so basically all the stuff in the wilderness so far, has been where we've started to shift further away from the Lost Mine proper and putting a lot more focus on the individual characters' backstories. That was my intention anyway. Which is why when things like episode 40, 41, 42, and that sort of TPK thing came, I was like, great, this is playing perfectly into what I want to do with this part of the adventure of now spotlighting them and going, there's more to these characters than meets the eye. And so, yeah, there's kind of that sandbox element, whilst also, because also, as James said, like, this is a published adventure. Any of you could go and read the adventure and probably spoil it for yourself a little bit. But you know, there are people that have played. This is a modern classic. Like, most people, what is one of the best adventures from 5th edition? Lost Mine would be pretty high up there. And so a lot of people know it. A lot of people have played it. It's the oldest adventure in the edition. So I kind of feel like I have to focus on the other characters as well, because otherwise it's just like, well, everybody knows, or a lot of people know how this is going to play out. And so I want to drive the focus away from the Lost Mine stuff and put it on the characters as well. Which, when I talk about having an end game in mind, that's what's driving the end game rather than Lost Mine.
Okay, well, thank you. That was really interesting to know. Because as I'm trying to plot a homebrew campaign, I keep thinking, okay, if they decide to go north instead of going south, what are they going to encounter that way? So again,
it's preparing scenarios, right? And preparing, like, okay, I've got there's the main plot that's going on in the background. I'm basically running about 4 or 5 different plots at the same time, and it's about, so going back to like the acting stuff, it's an improv thing where you hear of like offers being made, and it's when an actor or an improv artist will stand up and be like, this is the thing that's happened, and the actors that are there either go with it or they kind of ignore it because it's not important. Now generally you're supposed to just go with it, right? But there is the option, not saying no, but just kind of, it's not a big significant enough thing to change the trajectory of the scene. And it's kind of the same thing with D&D. It's like there are a lot of hooks and offers, to use the improv term, that have been put on the table, and there'll be some that they're just like, don't care. Don't care. And they might be things that will have consequences later because they've not dealt with, or it might be things that actually are so insignificant that actually it makes no difference at all. So it's just about giving them options, but then also I'm a chronic over preparer, so I've got things prepared too much that some might say that I know things well enough that they can go in various different directions, and I've got the tools to kind of go with it. And then again, as I said, I have that month between a session to be like, right, okay, I now have to flesh this bit out here, kind of thing. Yeah, which I hope is helpful.
No, it's all really interesting. It can almost seem daunting to even contemplate being a DM, because as a player you know how many things or how many times you've derailed everything and turned things on its head. I think so you're almost scared to plan anything because you know they're not going to go down that route, they're not going to go down that track, and so the princess, they're going to go on a ship and sail off to some unknown sea that you've then got to populate on the hoof. So I guess it's the danger of over planning and overthinking, but as you said in the other question about advice for newbies, kind of like think of scenarios as a living, moving thing around the players more than the driving force of the players.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes the burden off you a little bit then, I think.
Okay, so where's the other questions? Okay. Here's a nice question from Robert Treadwell. If you could meet your character in real life, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, have a bath.
Yes.
I don't know. I guess the advice I'd give Sergei is just don't do anything stupid. Which I don't know, because you know Sergei's just not going to listen to anything you tell Sergei to do. So don't do anything stupid. Have a bath. And you're making good friends, so keep them and look after them.
That's really nice. I like that.
Yeah.
I think I'd get good advice from my character, if that makes sense. I'd be like, she's kind of got some of her shit in a different way together that I don't. I would say something along the lines of, you have no reason to doubt them. Something like that. Like, you know, it's okay. It's okay to trust these people, I think.
Johann's not really as grumpy as he seems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't be all
violence isn't always the answer. That's what I'd probably say.
But sometimes it is.
It is.
Sometimes.
But I think we've more or less covered all the questions from myself and the fans, guys.
Oh my goodness.
Ooh, fantastic.
Oh, I have one more.
Ooh.
It's a little fun one.
Ooh.
Excellent.
A classic old school question. As your character, who would you snog, marry, and avoid? I'm guessing you've only got 3 that fit all 3 options. It's relatively easy for you to choose.
Ooh, it's a hard choice.
That is so hard.
I think, Sergei is going to I will snog Johann. He needs a good kiss. Probably. Oh, then it's the question of who do you marry and who do you avoid?
Yeah. Oh,
probably marry Saga just for protection.
I like that. Big one, little man.
Avoid Thoric, I guess, because Sergei probably fears that Thoric is going to whack his head in at any point because of his shenanigans.
For Saga, it would be avoid Sergei.
Yeah.
Then it's Oh God.
Well, they've already
Need
had
Saga.
currently married Johan previously. I didn't do
Yeah,
too
pretend
bad.
married. That is tough. Could
But
flip
maybe
a coin, really. I
Thoric
think
instead.
she'd, for companionship, probably marry Thoric and snog Johan. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Johan's getting all the kisses.
Dirty dog.
Dirty dog.
Margaret.
And Wayne, can you answer as Margaret,
Yes,
please?
you've got
Margaret.
I think Margaret would
Uncle.
snog Sergei.
Yeah.
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 I think
Yeah, she has
would-
soft up with Sergei.
I think she would marry Thoric.
Yes, Thoric respects her a lot.
Yeah.
Elders.
And I think she would.
Avoid Johan.
She didn't meet Saga, did she?
Yeah,
so I
no,
suppose,
she
yeah,
didn't.
she would avoid Johan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Johan was grumpy.
Yeah.
Sergei was a nice young chap.
Gave her a gold coin. Was it a gold coin or was it some coppers? I can't remember now.
I think it was a gold coin.
It was a gold coin.
Here's a gold coin.
Got so many
He
coppers.
gave the coppers to the bloody server, which
Three.
was
Odd.
the most embarrassing moment.
So welcome.
Wow, so that's all the questions.
Yeah, that's everything.
Blimey.
We've talked about so much.
I know.
Actually can't think of anything right now. Mainly because I need more content to come up with more questions.
Oh, there's plenty more coming.
Very
There's plenty
good.
more coming. I genuinely am very excited for everybody to see the special that we
Yay.
filmed a few days ago. It's very, very good, and it just sounds like, you know, shameless plugging, but genuinely I think it's
I agree.
best.
It was top notch episode.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, cool. Well, thank you, Becky, and genuinely, yes, a very big thank you to you, Becky, because
Yes.
this
Yes,
has all
thank
come
you.
from, you know, in many ways you'll want
I'm
to
just a
contribute.
good mad fan. That's it. Trust me. If you ask any of these authors on my shelves, I've met them at least once, if not followed them around. Giles Christian is a slight obsession of mine, and I've been to a lot of his events.
Well, the world could
I'm
do with
always
more
there,
with
popping
more
up where I
people
can,
like you,
but-
Becky. That's what I say.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
don't you?
Absolutely.
More super committed fans.
Yes.
And the world would be a better place. But genuinely, though, Becky, thank you so much for volunteering and offering to do this, and you've put a lot of work into this as well. So
Thank you for agreeing with this mad idea and for offering me this very privileged position. I know I speak on behalf of all your fans when we say thank you for all your hard work and dedication and the hours you put in, guys. Whether you're out of it or not out of it, we know you're all involved, and we love you all for it. So
Aw,
thank you. It makes it all worth it. The long hours of prep, because I'm an over prepper. No, genuinely, it's a delight to see the response that we get when we put out an episode. I think all of us have, like, even, you know, some of us have been spotted out in public, which has been a big shock to us. Very humbling as well. Very, like, really.
It was lovely. Lovely.
So to you specifically, Becky, but to everybody else as well, like, just a huge thank you, because I don't think we were expecting quite the response that we've had from doing this. There are a lot of actual plays out there. A lot of people work very, very hard on them.
So many.
And, you know, we've been blessed to have struck a chord with quite a lot of people, and hopefully many more to come. But yeah, I think it's surprised and delighted us all, I think, how quickly we've had a committed and very passionate audience grow. So yeah, just a huge thank you to everyone.
I just enjoy tweeting people that I can reach on Twitter, which is why every after episode I'm scouring for a meme or a GIF to reflect what happens to the episode. So.
And your gift choices are usually
They're
fantastic.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, Becky, and thank you for tuning in, everyone. And there is so this will be coming out on the Tuesday. So in 2 days' time will be the extra long special. There is probably going to be a different premiere time, but I haven't yet decided when that's going to be. So keep an eye out. But it's happening on Thursday, and it will be airing the usual day, the 29th. So strap yourself in, get yourself several cups of tea, because it goes on for a while, but in a good way. And we will see you then.
Thank you very much, everyone.